Wayne, when we fell off the swing, we went right back on. For the most part, most of us did. If you fell down when you ran, you stood yourself back up and you started to run again. So part of the secret sauce of learning resiliency is you don't let them stay down too long.
Don't be afraid of the dark. Be careful with stars. Not every light is gonna guide you, baby. Not every light is gonna guide you.
So, Dr. Kathy, today on the Celebrate Kids podcast, in this daily segment, Facing the Dark, I want to look at something that I saw from entrepreneur and family coach Scott Donnell. He shares a quirky ritual for his family of 6 that they use when they go out to eat. He has the kids order the food for the entire table. Now, this sounds really chaotic, especially when I think about my family doing this. But I don't know. Watching the video made me think that maybe it's not as chaotic as I might think it would be. Donnell points out that this exercise really does teach his kids all kinds of valuable skills, some things in communication, memory, especially kind of public speaking. And he says to pull it off, your kid has to look the server in the eye. They have to speak clearly. They have to use please and thank yous, and they have to pay attention to what the server is saying. No, Dr. Kathy, I think this is kind of a fun practice. We go out to eat a lot, and there's a reality when we're on the road that I think this would be really fun where you just start to order all of my food. So, but you're not my kid, so it doesn't really have the same
No.
weight there. But what do you make of this for families? Is this kind of a practice that you think would be fun or should be exercised? What do you make of this?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. And actually, when you and I go out to eat together, if I asked you, what looks good on the menu and, you told me, I would have to listen. I would have to pay attention. I would have to prioritize you and not me. And then I would have to, again, do the whole eye contact thing with the server, which I would do when I order my own food. But I mean, it's an interesting idea even for adults. Can we have the attention span to listen and to put someone else first and to remember, ranch dressing versus, honey mustard? And you know which one I want. And I know which one you want, and that's because we do hang out quite a bit, and it's such a blessing. I think this is really intriguing. I like the idea of kids learning that there's a reason to pay attention to the details. I like them trying to keep it organized and keep it straight that mom wants this and dad wants this and my oldest brother wants that. I do like the idea again of eye contact and speaking clearly and listening well to the server. I don't think it would be easy in a lot of cases, but I do like the idea because why? We got to teach these skills. These are what people call soft skills, but what if they're more important than 2 plus 2 equals 4?
Yeah, Dr. Kathy, I do wonder that, but I also wrestle this out a little bit if we were to exercise it in our family, and partly because we've got some kids that are very word and logic smart, and they would sprint at this. But I
Mm.
also have some kids that are very self-smart, and they would shudder at this because I think that if they were asked questions about what somebody wanted on the meal and it wasn't disclosed early, they would really wrestle with it because it would put them on the spot and they wouldn't want to get the answer wrong, and they would have to internalize some different things. And it just kind of, I think, would cause them more stress and consternation than it would be something that would be really fun and to be celebrated. Is this just something that we should expect to kind of awaken in all of our kids, that they start to build this and have this attitude? Or is this something where we know our kids and know, okay, for the 3 here at the table, this is something that would come easily for them. And so we're going to let them practice. And for the other 3, we're not going to put them on the spot. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that's really good, actually. I think we individualize our instruction. We do that in the classroom, we do that at home. If you've got one kid who would absolutely be terrified and they would actually be fearful of talking, then it's not going to be good for them. So there's nothing wrong with starting with the oldest or starting with the one who volunteers to do it and kind of watching to see what happens with the expectation that you say to the children, at some point it will be your turn. So watch how your sister does it and ask me any questions that you have. And so we have the expectation because we believe in listening and focus and paying attention and learning to communicate with a loud enough voice, but not shouting, et cetera. We want them to all learn that. So we're going to give them a chance. And Wayne, what if we started, like, let's say that you have a quieter kid or a kid who's more shy. What if their job was to walk in and answer the question, how many are in your party? Or some server comes, you come in and the hostess stand guy says, boy, you're a big family. And your youngest son says, yes, there are 8 of us, please. Like, that would be a powerful start to being able to make eye contact and communicate. What if your youngest did just the appetizer? Or what if your 8-year-old who isn't as word smart does just the beverages? and then the other kids learn to do the whole meal. So what if we thought about it like we think about everything, Wayne, little by little, watching them grow up into the opportunity?
Yeah, I love that, Dr. Kathy. I think that helps, build their courage and their confidence a little bit. I like that idea of taking it little by little and kind of bite size, especially for those kids that it doesn't come naturally to them. Let's say that we're executing this, and this happens oftentimes in our family where somebody will fail at something and it will seem devastating, right? This happens sometimes with our kids where, they clean their room and then I come up there and I'm like, oh, I found three things that are not right. And so you have to fix this. And it can be really devastating for them in that moment where they were so proud of something that they did and everyone ended up laughing at it, or the waiter or the waitress didn't like it and responds negatively, or something like that happens. And now there's kind of this failure that that kid kind of carries because we put them out there. And there can be almost like this, feeling of like, man, mom, man, dad, why did you put me in this situation? And they can kind of crawl underneath the table. And I can just envision this with some of my kids that would be their response. They would feel so embarrassed and it would be so devastating. How do we guide our kids when that happens, when their words don't come out right and they kind of fail in this? What would you say we should do in those situations?
Yeah, I like what you just said, kind of fail in this, because I'm not a fan of the word fail or failure. It was an opportunity to learn something new. It was an event in time. It was an excellent attempt. You didn't get it exactly right this time. That's okay. So again, let's be careful of our language and let's be available to the conversation. I think if I were at dinner with a bunch of kids and I wanted my 9-year-old to do it for the first time, I would sit next to my 9-year-old at dinner that night. And I would rehearse in his ear, so Angela, what did Angela want? What kind of chicken on her salad? I would help him process, the ideas, and I would sit there and maybe I would do every other person. Maybe I would do one and then my 9-year-old son would do one and then I would do the other kid and then he would do another kid. So I think we set them up to be successful as much as we can. And maybe we even say to a hostess, my son is going to try to order for all of us the first time ever. Because if I were the host, if I were the server, I would now be so much more patient than I might typically be. Although I hopefully would be, patient all the time. So, and then we wait and we try again, right? Wayne, when we fell off the swing, we went right back. For the most part, most of us did. If you fell down when you ran, you stood yourself back up and you started to run again. So part of the secret sauce of learning resiliency is you don't let them stay down too long. So the very next time that you go out to eat, you ask your 9-year-old son, hey, would you like to try to order for yourself today? For one other person as well as yourself? I think that would be amazing. And if not, you give them space and grace, but you let them know that they're not failures. It's not final, and we're going to help you gain experience here so that you can enjoy it.
As Dr. Kathy and I were talking today, it reminded me of a passage that comes out of Exodus chapter 4, and I'll begin reading at verse 10. Moses said to the Lord, pardon your servant, Lord. I have never been eloquent, neither in the past nor since you have spoken to your servant. I am slow of speech and tongue. The Lord said to him, who gave human beings their mouths? Who makes them deaf or mute? Who gives them sight or makes them blind? Is it not I, the Lord? Now go, I will help you speak and will teach you what you say. Moses had deep leadership potential, but when God called him to speak, Moses really resisted, and he resisted hard. He didn't lack intelligence or even faith. He lacked confidence in his word. God didn't shame him, though. He didn't dismiss him. He didn't force instant fluency. He acknowledged Moses' fear and provided support for him, notably through Aaron, while still inviting Moses into the growth of developing speech. Now, in Scripture, we see that courage is not really personality-based. It's calling-based. God doesn't wait for eloquence to act. He grows courage through participation, through building a scaffolding and being able to give us things to hang on that scaffolding and then ultimately to trust him in it. Theologically, this really does tell us something essential. Hesitation doesn't disqualify a kid, and it also doesn't disqualify us. It reveals where formation is still happening. So as parents, we can understand that when our kids can't get their words out, we shouldn't assume that it's weakness. Moses struggled with speech and still led an entire nation. Courage grows when kids are invited and supported, and when they're allowed to try without the threat of embarrassment. So a responsibility for us isn't to make our kids fearless, it's actually to help them practice courage with the safety of development inside of our loving care. I hope that's an encouragement for you, and I hope that all the things that we do here at Celebrate Kids are an encouragement for you. I want to remind you that we do send out emails and text messages and different things that highlight some of the things that we talk about here on the podcast, notably through our blog. You can find that and sign up for those different communication venues by going to celebratekids.com and clicking on the blog link, the blogs and podcast link. There you can sign up for our email list or sign up for our text messages, and we are happy to send you ways that you can connect with us, ask us questions, but also read some more insights that Dr. Kathy has on these topics. I'm so thankful you joined us today on the Celebrate Kids podcast, this daily segment Facing the Dark. On behalf of Dr. Kathy Koch, my name is Wayne Stender. We're looking forward to seeing you here again tomorrow.